A question came up on the Fusion user forum recently on how to split up a helix like this so that you can have this as different colors. Now these aren't different components, only the faces different color stripe. And you could have a variation on how you do that. But let's look at an interesting way that this might relate to other design problems. Let's take a look at how to set something like this up, and then we'll look at the implications of being able to model this geometry. So I'm going to start a new sketch, and I'll do it on the front plane. And so let's turn on that visibility, and I'll do a sketch. And I'm going to draw a polygon at the origin, and let's make this a diameter, let's say, of 100. So I'm going to change this to a center line, and I'll do a dimension. Actually, let's do this a diameter of, say, 50. And then I'll do a height of 100. Okay, I'm going to change these three lines to construction lines. So I'll select them, I'll hit X on the keyboard, and change those to construction. I'm going to draw a line over top of this. So I'll draw a line from the midpoint of this line over to the end of this line. Okay, so these three lines are construction lines, center line, object line. I'm then going to go to the surface tools, and I'm going to do a sweep, and I want to sweep this profile, the line, along this path, this center line, and I want to twist around that. So I'm going to put in a twist angle, let's say, of 5 revolutions times the 360 degrees. Okay, so I'll do 5 revolutions times 360 degrees. I'll say OK to that. I then want to create a plane perpendicular to the start of this curve. Now that will be different than the XZ plane. It'll be at a slight angle to be perpendicular to the start of that curve. So I'm going to do a plane along path. I'm going to turn off tangent chain. That's usually on by default because I only want to select this curve. I don't want to select the entire boundary. So I'll select this, and I'm going to select it up here just to demonstrate. I actually want it back here, so I either need to put in 1 or 0. In this case, it'll be 0. 1 would put it up here at this end of the path. So I'll do 0. That puts it at the beginning of the path perpendicular to the path. So if I look at this, it's at an angle here. It isn't straight up and down. That will keep our geometry as a circle or whatever shape that we're going to create. I'm then going to do a sketch on that plane, and I'll draw a circle here at the origin, and I'm going to draw a second circle here at the origin, and let's give those circles a dimension. So I'm going to give this circle a dimension, let's say, of 4, and I'm going to dimension this one. Now this one doesn't really matter. The bigger we make it, the easier it might be to select, but we could make it too big for our purposes. We'll see here in a minute. I'm going to finish that sketch, and then I'm going to do a solid sweep. So I'll do a sweep of this smaller circle, and again I want to turn off this chain selection, and I'll do path. I want it to go along that path, and I'll say OK to that. I'll turn off the visibility of the helical surface. I'm going to turn on the visibility of that sketch, and I want to put a patch over top of this. So I'm going to go back to the surface, and I'm going to do a patch. I'm going to select the larger circle, and I want it to be both the larger circle and the smaller. It should have picked or avoided that circle automatically. Let's say OK to that and check. So I'll turn off the body, and I know that it didn't do what I thought it might do. So I'm going to edit that feature, and I'm going to select this circle as well, as I want that to be enclosed entirely in here, so that is one surface body. I'll turn off the visibility of that sketch now. Let's turn on the visibility of the helical surface. Now here is the problem. I would like to pattern something along this helix, but I can't pattern this plane that we made. It won't let me pattern that along that helix. And so I'm going to do a I'm going to pattern this along this helix. So I'll create a pattern and I'll do a pattern on path. And then I want to select the type that I want is a body. And I'll select that body. And then I'm going to select this path and I'm going to select this curve. Let's just drag this at first. So I'll drag that and we see that I've got 3 copies here right now, but I want those to be perpendicular to the path as it goes around this helix and not identical. So I'll do path direction, the option. So now we see it's going to change that direction as it goes around the path. And I'm going to put a quantity. Let's drag though the distance all the way to the top here. Now I don't know how long this helix is, but when I drag this, it will snap to the end of that helix. So that tells me the length of that helical curve, which might be interesting uh, to know as well. And then I could either tell it to fill that extent or that distance, or I could put individual spacing between these copies. In this case, I want to fill that up equally. And so let's say I'm going to do 25 copies of that surface. Okay, so then I'll turn off the visibility of the helix. And actually, it might be easier if I left that on for a second, or I turn on the visibility of the body. And so we see these now. I can do a sketch on each one of these as though this was a plane. So if I wanted to do a sketch, because each one of these is 2D, I could do a sketch on any one of these. Now I'm just doing a circle. The shape of those could be different. So if you wanted to do a complex loft that the shape changes from one shape to another, you could do a sketch on each one of these surfaces to get the shape that you want. And so that's the real power of what we've just demonstrated. I'll continue on, but keep that in mind for other types of problems. I'm then I want to show all of the surface bodies over here, and I'm going to split this face. So I'll do go back to the solids tools, and I'll do split face. And I don't want to do these one at a time. So first I need though to select the face I want to split, which is this face. And then for the splitting tool, I'm going to select this first surface. Remember, this is the helix up here. And then this is the first circular surface. And I'll go down, I'll hold the shift key down, and I'll select the last one. So that selects all of those surfaces. And so I can do this all in one step. And I'll say OK to that. Now if I turn off these surfaces, so I'll select the last one, I'll hold down the shift key, I'll select the first one, I'll right click and I'll hide those. Okay, so now we see that these surfaces have all been split. And then it's a matter of adding the properties or the appearance to that. And so let's expand this and let's go to this and I'll say go to the appearance. And I'll put my overall color first, and so I might go in here and I'll drag a color up. So I'll put this on the entire body. So it says bodies or components. Put this on the entire body, and then I'll get additional colors. And so I'm going to bring up this red and say this yellow, and then I'll do those only as faces. So I'll do this one is yellow, and I'll do the next one as uh, red, and then I've got black, so that color is continuous. And then I'll do my yellow again, and so the key to this was to put it onto faces after you set the body color. So setting up these patterns of surfaces that you could use for sketching is the critical important step to take away from this exercise.